Okay? There's a bunch of stuff going on. But as we're talking about being responsible citizens, and we're saying we have values as a particular political party that cares about the dignity of individuals, the rights of individuals, the opportunities for individuals, this is how we get involved, okay? This is what we're about, which leads us to our speaker, okay? How to get involved in education. Now, hopefully, you're not getting ready to go to the next board meeting waving all kinds of banners and marching around the room and telling the board that they're not doing anything right and that we need a new superintendent. Please don't do that. There might be somebody who may. We're here to say we want to learn more of what's going on in our whole educational system. There are lots of schools all over the county. There are lots of teachers, there are lots of students, and we have some very fine administration as well. And so I would like to introduce to you the person who has been holding her own as the new superintendent here in Rowan Salisbury Schools, coming to that role as a teacher, as a principal, and now as superintendent, Dr. Kelly Withers. Come on up, Kelly.
All right, good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you. I'll start with just telling you a little bit about who I am. Most of you might have known or have read, but I'll tell you a little bit about me and then we'll jump into the school system. So as it was shared, I started my education career in Rowan Salisbury as a teacher. I taught at West Rowan High School for about 6 years. And then I see there's some Falcons here. And I'll talk about them again in a minute. But and then I was at Carson High School as an assistant principal when it opened and transitioned into the principal role there. And after Carson High School, I went to South Rowan High School, and I was there for 6 years, and then spent a little bit of time at the central office here in Rowan Salisbury before, after 21 years, taking a brief detour into Cabarrus County for about 9 months, and then coming back here in September of 2022. I live in China Grove and have throughout that entire time. I have 3 children. And one of them graduated from South Rowan High School and is a sophomore at UNC Chapel Hill. And I'm super excited because he's coming home today for spring break, and he has not been home since Christmas. So I'm excited that he is traveling back. And I'm also the mother of twin 15-year-old girls who are freshmen at South Rowan. So yes, all words of sympathy we accept. Twin teenage girls are an experience all into their own, but they are lots of fun. But all of that illustrates that my family and I, my husband Lee, we're all very, very dedicated to Rowan County and very proud to live here, and hope one day that our children will be educated and return back to this county to give back in the ways that we have as a family already. So I'm excited to be here with you. We have a lot of great things going on in Rowan Salisbury, so I'll start with a couple of those things to celebrate. First and foremost, as soon as I'm done with this meeting, I'm going to pick up the family, and we are headed to Raleigh and Chapel Hill because we have 2 teams in the state championship final game today. Hopefully you know West Rowan High School's girls team will play this afternoon at 2:30 in Raleigh. And then I will quickly leave that game, hopefully with the pictures, championship trophies, and go to Chapel Hill where Salisbury Hornets, our Salisbury Hornets women's team will also play for the state championship. So a lot of powerful women in the place for those 2 events. We also had this week our finalist for Beginning Teacher of the Year. Amber White is a middle school teacher at China Grove Middle School, and she was one of the 27 finalists for the state award, and we're very proud of her. So she is in her 2nd year teaching and already being recognized for her efforts in the classroom. So excited about that as well. I'll talk about a few other promising practices that we've been recognized at the state level for after I get through some of our strategic initiatives and things that we're working and ways that you can be involved with our school district. And then I'll end with just question and answer. If you have questions, which I'm sure you will, about the school district, I'll be glad to do my best to answer those. So a couple of things. Hopefully you all know that we are still the only renewal school district in the state of North Carolina. We're very proud of that. We're very proud of the journey to get to that. So Dr. Lynn Moody, who was superintendent for 7 years, helped orchestrate that through the legislative powers that we were given that flexibility. So to talk just a second about what that means. So because we are the only renewal school district in the state, we actually hope they expand that to other districts as well. It's not being the only that's important, it's the work that goes with being renewal so that we can spread it. But what that means is that our schools have charter-like flexibilities, all of them. So we have 4 buckets of flexibility. We have curricular flexibility, which means we can design our curriculum to meet the needs of our students. So what does that actually look like? That means that in our classrooms, if you come to visit our schools, which we would encourage you to do, if you come to visit them, you will see integrated courses in a lot of our schools, specifically our high schools. So we teach classes like geometry and construction, which means you can learn Math 2 paired with carpentry. We teach amped up algebra, which means you can learn Math 1 paired with business or entrepreneurship classes. We teach English classes through CTE Advanced Studies, because English is really about communication, reading, writing, speaking, and listening. So a CTE Advanced Studies class learns that through how do you build your business, how do you create a business proposal, how do you sell, how do you speak to people about your business. You'll see these offerings expanding all across our district, where we're trying to connect content together so that students that learn about things like exponential growth in math understand that that is the exact same term, exponential growth, that's being taught in biology when we're talking about bacterial growth. So trying to link all of that together so that we see that relevance and students see the relevance. And we're also trying to identify standards that are super important for all of our students, and then supporting standards that are important for students depending upon their path of where they're going next. So that is one piece of renewal. We also have flexibility in personnel. So we can hire teachers that do not have a teaching license. And at first glance, people are like, why would you want to do that? So here's some examples of why you would want to do that. Dance studio owners who are open in the afternoons and evenings to serve their customers can come into our schools and teach dance for a period or 2 a day and not have to affiliate with a university to get a teaching license to do that when that's the business that they do every evening. An example of that as well, strength and conditioning, photography, civics can be taught by a lot of people probably in this room. How do we make sure that our students understand the relevant connections of the industry? You also have teachers that come in without a teaching license that go into core areas. They may have a degree in English or a degree in communications, and we do encourage those teachers to eventually get their license, because if they want to stay in the profession long term and not just do a period or 2 a day, it makes them more marketable if they have their teaching license as well. So we help them get to those pathways. We have 156 renewal teachers right now in our district. That's super important because we have, if you haven't heard, a teaching shortage. So without that ability in our district, that'd be 156 individuals and adults that we would not have working with our students. And it is one of the abilities or parts of renewal that people ask us about all the time, and other districts wish that they had. There are other parts as well. We also have budget flexibility. At the state level, our money comes in buckets if you're in a non-renewal school district. So you get a bucket of money and it says you can spend it on these 3 things and these 3 things only. And if you don't need those 3 things, you don't spend the money and it reverts back to the state. In the renewal school district, we get all of our money in one bucket. It all comes in one bucket and we can move it to wherever we see fit to meet the needs of our students. It is a blessing in a lot of ways. It's also an unbelievable responsibility to have that. So we have to have a lot of oversight of what that looks like at every level, both at the school level and at the district level. So we spend a lot of time talking about our funding and where we most need it and centering that around children. And then our last one, our most famous one, is calendar. We have flexibility in calendar. I was just told yesterday that 80 other districts in the state are going to try to get that flexibility. They have not been granted permission to do that, but they want the early start calendar that we have. We are the only district in the state that has permission to do that year after year without writing a waiver. So our calendar is moved forward. As you know, we start in early August. We're out by Memorial Day. Our exams for high school students are before the winter break. All of that because that was the first act that we did as a renewal school district. There is a lot more, however, that we will continue to do with calendar flexibility. We became a renewal school district in July of 2018. 2018, 2019, we did a lot of planning and work, brainstorming and dreaming. 2019 was the first batch of schools launched their renewal initiatives. I don't have to say what happened in March of 2020. I think everyone is aware. So when you hear people say, well, renewal's not working because look at their test scores, we actually never completed a full year of renewal. Renewal would have, its first year of implementation would have ended in 2020. We didn't test any children that year. And then for the next 2 years, when we did start to test children again, there were a lot of other factors at play that impacted the results that we have. Can I also say that renewal has been a success? We cannot yet. We haven't finished a full year of implementation. As you know, we've had leadership transitions, we've had a lot of uncertainty within the district, and we are spending time right now relaunching those ideas and trying to really dive into what does renewal look like. So we are huge advocates of keeping the flexibilities, and we have been told, we present every year at the state board. I presented in November, and it seems very encouraging. They have great feedback for us, and you will start to see that some of the language at the state superintendent's level is echoing some of the same language that we've been using in Rowan Salisbury schools. So the enrolled, enlisted, employed idea, we authored that a few years ago. The multiple measures approach to accountability, that not every kid can be judged by one test score. There's so much more that goes into children and their experiences and their successes. All of that is stuff that right now you're seeing at the state level, and a lot of the people from Rowan Salisbury involved in working in that work as well. So we're very proud of that. When we took the responsibility, when the Board of Education accepted that responsibility, the words that we said was, this is legacy work. This is work about changing the future of education. And that's what we still believe about it. We've just got to get back to it in the face of coming out of a pandemic and other transitions that have occurred. So a couple of ideas of what that means for us. We are relaunching our strategic plan. It was written over the last probably year to 18 months, and we've taken a hard look at that with our staff. We started with principals, then we had an assistant principal group, we had a teaching group, we had a Wallace support staff group, we had a classified staff group, which is our instructional support staff. We've had parents and we've had students. So we've met with groups of students to talk about what that plan looks like. The student voice is my favorite voice. It's the one that I enjoy really sitting down with them and listening, because this is really about them and their experiences and listening to them. Oftentimes we do things to them, not with them, and so we want to flip that and say, this is your plan of how we move the district forward, so how do we do that? That doesn't mean they tell us what to do, but it does mean that their voice is super important. A great example of that is sometimes we start clubs in schools, we start extracurricular activities, and we launch them, and the adults are super excited about them, and the kids are like, that's not fun, we're not interested in that. You want to do that, I don't want to do that. And so then they fall. So having that voice on the front end is extremely helpful for us to know where they're going and what they want to do. So as we relaunch that strategic plan, we have 5 big areas. Not to unveil all of it yet because our board is still in process of looking at it, but we did have a community feedback group on Monday where community gave us feedback on the ideas and shared their excitement and enthusiasm around some of the ideas. So I'm going to give you kind of a sneak peek of what the 5 big areas are and an example of an action step under each of those. The first one is building academic excellence. That's the core of our business. That's what we do. And so really focusing in on, one example is the integration and the relevance of the work that students are doing. The problem-based learning pieces and parts of that. The innovative learning models. STEM academies is one example. Dual language immersion is another example. Expanding these ideas so that more students have access to these opportunities is key to us. One of the big action steps though underneath that, and one that we need your help with and all of our community's help with, is kindergarten readiness. So we have some very specific strategies around building a campaign around kindergarten readiness. What does it mean to be kindergarten ready? What do we need students to know and be able to do in order for us to accelerate the learning when they enter into kindergarten? You all know we do kindergarten screening. So students come before kindergarten and they do a brief assessment so that we can assess where they are. Rowan Salisbury School students last year entering kindergarten were 16% kindergarten ready. So we have to up our seats of pre-K, access to pre-K. Unfortunately, we only have about 50% of the seats that we need, but even those seats aren't full. So we have to get out into the community and partner with, for example, Alyssa Harris was there on Monday for our feedback session for public health. All kinds of people were in the room that have access to, how do we get into parents' hands? What does it mean to be kindergarten ready? Greg Alcorn is a huge partner for us with that, with AppSeed, but really educating people on what does it mean and how do we help get students there so that they are ready when they truly enter kindergarten. That's under building academic excellence. Our second big priority area is growing through learning experiences. When you talk about growing through learning experiences, we want our classrooms to not be confined to the four walls of a classroom. We want students out to see that Rowan County is their campus. We want students to see that the state of North Carolina is their campus. The nation can be their campus. Internationally can be their campus. How do we connect all of that so that students who have not been able to access outside of their buildings have access outside of their buildings, aligned with what students are supposed to be learning and doing? So standards-based pieces. Yesterday, I had phone calls all day about different mishaps on a field trip for this and a field trip for that. We had so many groups out. We had quite a few groups that traveled to Raleigh yesterday, elementary school students. I was amazed. I was in elementary school earlier this week and they were so excited about the trip. Someone asked if they were going to ride the train and they said, well, they're not, because it's $13,000 for us to ride the train. So we had to figure out another way for that to happen, but they're still nonetheless getting to go to Raleigh. And I was so surprised at the number of children that were so excited about it. When I asked what they were excited about, they said, I don't know, I've never been there before. And I thought, oh my goodness, it's so close. But for a lot of our students, we are the access point for them to have those opportunities. So making sure that we are doing that. We had another somehow day trip yesterday to Charleston, South Carolina. That does not sound extremely exciting for me to go to Charleston in one day and come back. The kids, however, endured it. I'm sure most of those teachers are still sleeping today, but the kids were very excited about that trip and that experience. But we have so much here, from our history museums to Horizons to Waterworks to all of the different things that happen within our own community that we can connect students to, that unfortunately many of our students don't have access to, especially in some of our rural areas as well, who've never been even into the city of Salisbury. And that's hard for many of us to believe, but it's very true for many of them. So growing through those learning experiences, K-12, making sure that all of our students have access and opportunity and understand how that connects to what they're learning is very important to us as well. Our third bucket is reinforcing wellness. So this is the piece where we get into student and staff wellness. It is also the piece where we get into building a healthy mindset for students. That's not something that admittedly we do a great job of. In high school, you have to take PE one time, 9th grade. That's the only year you take it, and that's the last time we really talk about it. And so making sure that we're having intentional conversations about what it means to be healthy, first from the standpoint of physical health, nutrition, as well as mental and social emotional health as well. So that involves resources, it involves community members, but it also involves us having that intentional focus on wellness. This is also the piece where you'll see our safety pieces being addressed, what we call an incident command structure, the unfortunate circumstance of being prepared if something happens within our schools that is dangerous. And so we are working on making sure those protocols are clear, and we actually will be the first district in the state to offer us training with our SBI to make sure that we are prepared with how to move forward from the lens of safety. Our fourth bucket, and there are 5, our fourth bucket is investing in talent. And that is a huge piece. The teacher pipeline is not super productive right now. The most recent stats is about 25% educator prep programs are declining. First and foremost, sometimes we're our own worst enemy there. Sometimes we talk very negatively about the work that we do. I hope that you can tell. I'm extremely passionate about it, and I tell everyone to be a teacher, including my own children. I don't know that they will actually do that, but they've heard it. But making sure that we are one selling it ourselves, making sure we're providing opportunities. So you're going to hear talk around teacher pipelines. We're going to hear talk around us getting our elementary, middle, and high schools, if they're interested, really building on that potential. Having them as high school students, they'll be able to take college and career promise classes through Rowan Cabarrus that lead them to an education degree. Those are free for our students when they're enrolled. So we have a partnership with Rowan Cabarrus for that. In addition, Rowan Cabarrus' partnership expands out that they can do their associates in teaching credentials for 2 years with them, and they have a pipeline that is very seamless, and they have made that pipeline seamless that they can transfer into Catawba for their last 2 years. All of their credits from Rowan Cabarrus would be honored, and it's a 50% tuition reduction for those students to go straight to Catawba. So Catawba is also working with us, and on the back end of that, when they do their student teaching, we have a lab school that we started as a part of renewal at Kuntz Elementary. The lab school allows them to do their student teaching in our schools where we can train them, and we pay them. So our student teachers that are apprentices get paid $2,000 a month to do their student teaching. So that's a clear pipeline all the way through. We are also working on expanding that so that Livingstone College can also be a partner in that. I've met with President Davis to talk about that. And then in addition, we are currently, while Livingstone builds that program and gets ready for that pipeline, we just signed an MOU with Winston-Salem State as well to provide teachers to go into that pipeline so that we can try to get our people in. Our lab school in last year, we had 10 apprentices, so those are 10 student teachers. 8 out of 10 stayed with us in Rowan Salisbury schools. We currently have 6 that are in there this year. 4 are from Catawba, the other 2 are from UNC Charlotte. And so we are working with them to try to get early contracts as well. We love student teachers, so anyone who has access to those and wants to encourage them to come to our district, we love those, and those that are quality, we're offering early contracts to keep them in our system and celebrate all the great things that are happening in our district. Inside, I think it's important though to say that investing in talent isn't just about who we bring in, it's who we have currently as well. And so we're working on career pipelines inside of our district. Hopefully it will soon be announced that we are going to have what they call advanced teaching roles, where we can compensate teachers for leadership roles within our district. But we want to develop those pipelines for all of our staff, not just our teachers, so that we have clear trajectory for people who want different roles. Not that they have to leave their current position. They don't have to become an administrator to be a leader. In fact, most of our leaders are within our classrooms or within our schools, not necessarily in a leadership role per se. So that is another piece. And then the last and final block of our strategic area is supporting organizational foundations. So that's examining our budget. It's examining our facilities. That is a piece that is very important that the community understands, knows, and helps us with. Our facilities are aging for sure. We have a lot of deferred maintenance. We have a lot of buildings that are in desperate need of financial support in order to make them the environment that our students deserve. And so you're going to hear a lot about that coming up very soon. We've done some work around what that audit looks like of our facilities. Most of our buildings were built in and around the 60s, and some of them are in desperate need, as I said, of maintenance and or renovation and or, quite honestly, new facilities. In addition, our county's growing, and we are seeing that in pieces as we go through, and that growth will cause us to need new facilities. Believe it or not, everyone knows in this room, but not everyone in the community realizes that that is paid for by tax dollars. So when we look at tax rates, when we look at that ability, we have to have the ability to sustain and move forward our school district, which is incredibly important for us. So you're going to hear conversations at the end of this month, actually, as we go forward with our budget resolution, as we go forward with projects around Knox Middle School, as well as other facility needs that will be coming very soon. So that's our district in a nutshell, very quickly, but I'll take any questions that you might have.